Good evening and welcome to worship. We are so very excited that you decided to spend a little time with us on tonight. This is our Tuesday night Bible study, and this edition is the men of the Roundtable, and we've been having a wonderful conversation. So we want to welcome you on tonight's conversation. So my name is Joel Huey. I'm the executive pastor here at Community Christian Center, better known as 3C. And we are so very excited that you plugged in with us on tonight. We are led by an awesome team of pastors, Pastor Julius and Karen White. Put your hands together for our lead pastors. We are so very excited about where they are taking us. For those of you who this may be your first time with us and you kind of want to know what 3C is all about. So our vision here at 3C is that we're changing people with the love of God. And the way we go about facilitating that is through our motto, which is life is better
when we do it together.
And we want to do life better together with you. So 13, 14 years, I guess 14 years now, when God called Pastor into the ministry, he gave him a job to do. And that job was to win souls for Christ. So here at 3C, we have a team, we call it our SWAT team. And SWAT stands for Soul Winning Around Town. And so we like to encourage our partners as they go through the week. If you lead somebody to Christ, reach out to us and let us know. So that when we get to heaven, we can hear God say, well done. And we want to invite you to join our SWAT team as well. If you win a soul for Christ, reach out to us, send us a phone call, give us an email, let us know, and that we can add that number into our overall count. A couple of other things that we want to share with you tonight. We want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to sow into the ministry. Maybe you're out there and you're looking for a way that you can help us changing people. You can help us make life better together for others. And we want to give you an opportunity to do that. There are two ways that you can sow into our ministry. One is you can text in your gift. The telephone number is 804-409-8687. Once again, 804-409-8687. Simply put in a dollar amount, you will receive an electronic receipt. Or you can go to our website, your3c.com. Click on the giving tab. You could give a one-time gift, or you can actually set up recurring giving and support us month in and month out as we continue to do God's work, spreading the gospel through all nations. We are so appreciative of all of you all who have decided to follow God's system for financial success and partner with us to help us accomplish our vision of being changed people, changing people. We also want to let you know that service time tonight will last about an hour, but we got a good conversation planned for you tonight. So sit back, relax, feel free to put your comments in your post. We are paying attention to those pieces of the puzzle, so feel free to jump in there and share with us any questions or comments that you may have. For those of you who are with us for the first time on Facebook, we want to invite you to hit like and turn on the notifications so you'll know every time we come on live. And if you're with us for YouTube on the first time, we're going to ask you to subscribe. Help us reach 3C 1,000. We are so thankful for all of our social media subscribers and followers for helping us spread the gospel. Thank you very much. And what we're going to ask you to do on tonight, on either one of those platforms, hit the share button and invite some of your men friends and family members to join us tonight in our conversation as we push forward and trying to help men iron sharpening iron. So we want to encourage you to do that. For those of you who are like, I really want to know more about 3C. Tell me, why y'all say that stuff that y'all say? How come y'all always having fun and laughing and having a good time? I want to know more about the ministry. Here's what you do. Text the word welcome. Text welcome to 804-925-1466. That's welcome, 804-925-1466. When you do that, you're going to get a Connect card. We need two additional pieces of information. We need your name, because we want to do life better together with you, not just your phone number. And we need your email address so we can send you detailed information about places we're going to be and things that are going on here at 3C. We are so appreciative of all of you all who have connected with us through our virtual church, and we are excited about where we're going. We got a summer planned for you. So we want to make sure that you understand and you're connected so you know about everything that's going on. This Friday night, we're having family night. We're going to get together. We're going to pop some popcorn. We're going to watch a movie. And we want to invite you and encourage you to plug in with us. Come on out to the building. Join us for family night and have a great time. And then Sunday morning, doors open at 10:15. Service starts at 10:30. We want to make sure you're here in the place. And if you want your own section, right, you want your own space, go to our website, click the Plan Your Visit button. Let us know that you're coming and how many people are coming with you, and we will be ready to receive you at the front door and have special seating awaiting just for you and your family. Thank you so much for joining us and connecting with us. And now I have the distinct honor of presenting to some and introducing to other our lead pastor here at 3C, Julius White.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Good evening, good evening, good evening. Big up to Pastor Jay and all the announcements. Hope you guys locked in and got that. If not, I'm sure it's on our Facebook page, our website, where you can just get that. I want to reiterate, because family night is going to be a ball. We're going to have a great time, some movie and popcorn. I'm looking forward to that. I always enjoy that. Movie on the big screen, popcorn. He's letting us have popcorn.
Yes.
You're in the sanctuary, y'all better come on out, okay? You better take advantage of this one.
One time only.
And then this Sunday, I'm really excited. You know, we got a challenge out to our men to bring a man, to every man to bring a man. We're going to have a great word. I declare war. So we got a great word, some great worship. It's going to be off the chain. So, and then, we got a prayer blessing that's going to be spoken over every man in the house. And I love when this thing comes together, and I'm appreciative to the brothers here and the work that's been done to ensure that this is a great success and that we are a blessing as God has called us to be. So tonight we're continuing this conversation. I'm actually excited about this conversation because it builds on everything that we've been talking about. So to my immediate left, you guys should be familiar with now. He's one of the leaders of our Renew You ministry. He's also one of the minstrels here, assigned here at 3C. Y'all show some love for Brother Paul Fletcher.
Ooh, doctor.
They say the good doctor. And then to my far left is the youngin', the newbie. He's still pledging, y'all.
I am the neophyte.
Yeah. Representing the young bucks on the stage tonight as we indulge in this conversation is a guy that we owe a great deal of love to. So if you ever see our production work, if you ever see the media work, you want to know who's doing it and how to get it in touch with him, we're going to let him give a quick introduction to himself, but y'all make feel welcome tonight, Brother John Patron. Tell him a little bit about yourself, Jay, so we can get to this conversation.
Peace. So I'm John. I have a multimedia company that I run here in Richmond called Culture Creators. I do everything multimedia, everything from graphic design to video photography. I do a lot of things. So you guys can contact me by getting in touch with me on any social media. Hashtag WeAreKK8, that's WeAreKK8, shameless plug. And of course, I work with a lot of ministries around the city, so just give me a holler, let me know, and I'm glad to be here.
So notice he said he will work with a lot of ministries around the city. That's work with. His assignment is here, but he will work with you, okay? We just want to make that clear. If you need some wonderful music play, Paul will come see you in the evening.
Wednesday night.
Any day but Sunday.
Y'all might as well smile, man. Have a good time, because I'm telling you, I'm going to. Hey, before we get started, look, I got a praise report before we get started, right? So you guys know about 2 years? I think it's about 2 years ago. Look, when you don't even know, you know you ain't worried about it. But I think it was about 2 years ago, I got diagnosed with long-granular lymphomic leukemia. I have to take my time with that because it's like speaking in tongues.
It's fake anyway.
and so, when they did it, they were really concerned about my blood work and my white cell count and where it was, how high it was, what was going on. And, I got a great team. My oncologist, shout out to Dr. McFarland, is off the chain. So I've been going, it started, I had to go every 3 months. I had to go, have blood work done, this, that, and the other. He would tell me this, he would tell me that, he would tell me this. And, in the beginning, if anybody tells you you got lymphoma, you got cancer, there's that fear factor that kicks in. And, yes, I love the Lord. I'm saved. I know if I die, I'm going to heaven, but I won't ready to go just yet. So, I responded like everybody. And, after a while, my support started to laugh at me and like, brother, you got too much faith to die. I was like, really? I'm thinking that you're going to pat me on the back and tell me it's going to be all right. And your answer is, you got too much faith to die. The other one was, you ain't going nowhere. So, I guess I won't get no pity party. So I figured we better start praising God and living by faith. And, man, I am telling you that we turned this thing over to the Lord. I did what he said. It was like, eat healthy, get back in the gym, just get healthy. And Pastor K will attest. I'm working out like 4 to 5 times a week. It's kind of crazy. I think I'm addicted again, but I went today. They took my blood. I went the last 6 months because it got to the point that I only needed to go every 6 months. Last 6 months, he was like, man, things are moving in the right direction. Just keep doing what you're doing. I went today. They took my blood. I get back there with Dr. McFarland. He was like, listen, I don't know what you're doing. He said, are you on some medication? And I'm looking at him like, you the doctor. Did you put me on any medication? I was like, so no, doc, I'm not on any medication. You're not taking anything new. Like, I'm not taking anything old, okay? He said, what are you doing? I said, a whole bunch of faith. I spent a lot of time with God. He said, I don't know what you're doing. He says, but your numbers are the closest to normal than they have ever been since I started seeing you. He was like, so I don't know what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I'm telling you, it's so I'm just believing God when he goes in and say, look, bro, the numbers are normal,
Why are you here?
Yeah, stop taking up.
Like, I'm gonna take my check, but
Stop taking up my customers that really need me space. So shout out to Abba Father, man, and just the supernatural still works. So I just could not give God some praise.
That's right.
Out loud. So tonight, let's get to the conversation. Y'all extend us a little grace of time. So tonight, the conversation is centered around bridge builders, one generation to the next. And this kind of was birthed out of, a conversation that John was brought into, and he kind of challenged us in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a good word, fellas?
Yeah, that's a good word.
To be those that reach back to or reach out to the next generation to share the wisdom and the experiences that's on our life, or the knowledge that we've gained to empower them to reach higher heights. And we just started to have some conversation, and one of the things that came out, like, okay, is that really our responsibility? If it is, how do we successfully do it? Because there are some gaps. I think that's how you phrased them, as gaps. And one of the big gaps that we have is communication. So let's kind of get into this tonight. Let's address these gaps. And I'm going to start with John because he's speaking for a whole demographic that, and we're going to put the weight of his generation on his shoulders. And
he can
state your case, and then let's get into it. So go on, Jay.
I appreciate that, Pops, for putting all of that weight on my shoulders. So one of the things that, and I did a little bit more, not only thought, but listening to like a lot more people in my generation. And one of the things is that keeps on going is a word that always comes to mind is accountability. And the lack thereof accountability when it comes to either the older generation speaking on some of the ills that were passed down, or even the long pauses of there not being someone in the community to pick up the baton for those who are missing in action.
Wow. Whew. This is gonna be deep. So we're gonna start clinical, and then we're gonna go spiritual, and then we're gonna go practical. So yeah, you know, because yeah, let's just make it plain down. Let's just make it plain down this end. But come on, brother Paul, speak to us.
It's interesting because I hadn't been looking at it.
Yeah.
I hadn't been looking at it from a clinical standpoint. But let's take a look. We've talked before about the fact that one of the things that many men, not all, but many of us struggle with is our ability to be vulnerable. What do I mean by vulnerable? In other words, to expose myself, to intentionally expose myself to potential harm, harm of emotion, harm physically, And so what does that have to do with any of this? What this means is that as a 56-year-old man, John, how old are you?
I'll be 35 next month.
Okay. So there's that gap that he talked about. And so it becomes incumbent upon me to become vulnerable to the point where I can let my guard down. As men, we have a tendency to have our guard up, and there's plenty of reasons why we have to have that guard up. We got families, we got jobs, we trying to do all these different things. But in order for me, and this is just my thinking, but in order for me to really be able to connect with John, I've got to let that go, and I've got to begin to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. What does that mean practically? I'm gonna steal some practicality from you.
Go ahead.
It means when I'm talking to John, sometimes I ain't got the answer. Sometimes it's just being there with him, saying nothing, or letting him talk. There will come a time when wisdom will be able to speak. There's this saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so sometimes we try to force these teachable moments. In other words, watch out there, young buck, let me show you how this goes. Let me tell you how that's supposed to be. And it's a difficult thing because we have to learn to balance that with, okay, let me first connect with John. Don't worry about trying to pour anything into him, because if anything, I might get poured into. But let me just connect with him on an emotional level. Now, that's spooky. I'm just saying, because we're talking about two men married with kids, and yet I use the word emotion.
Right.
But that is where I believe it's going to start, because I can let my guard down. I can become vulnerable so that I can connect with him. Then he's more inclined to stay connected with me. Now that's one side of the equation. So
Yeah. Right on top of that is, he who will have a friend must first show himself friendly. There in our community, or really in a men's setting, one of the harder things to find is trust. And it's because we are so competitive. We'll walk into a room full of men that we don't know and immediately begin to compete. I don't know why. It's a dog. It just happens. You walk.
Or non-compete. It's interesting you say that, because if you pay attention, there's two sides. There's a faction that will automatically compete with you, but there's a whole other faction that will back away and withdraw for that exact same reason. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The scrutiny is from how you dress to how you walked to the aura to your confidence. You know, it immediately happens when there's a room full of males. You know, one of the hard things about the bridge is for many of us, for many men, it never existed. So one, knowing how to extend that without feeling the emotions or feeling feminine or it being misinterpreted, you know, or misconstrued or used against you because of a lack of trust, it becomes very difficult. Yeah, you know, men don't trust easily. You know, so to build that takes time, it takes effort, you know, it takes energy, which means I gotta see a reason to.
Right.
I gotta see a reason to. And that's for some, you know, if you come out of my background where there were no men, all women, when I start dealing with men, the trust factor is really low. And it has probably nothing to do with them but the fact that I didn't build a trusting relationship with my father. You know, my older uncles died while I was young. So that relationship, bridging that bridge or that, you know, crossing that breach is challenging for me. I have to make efforts, and I mean efforts to come across. That's why I will easily say I'm an introvert. It's easy for me to do what Paul said, is come into a room, withdraw and find my spot and be comfortable and confident where I am and never cross over to mingle with you. It is easy for me to be in a crowded room and find an alone place. Easy. You know, the thing is to put myself out there. So, you know, that trust factor, that comfort, you know, that those efforts that are required to reach out, especially not knowing what the response is going to be. And that's something we have to talk about, because sometimes when you do put yourself in that, the response from my younger brothers is so not just negative, it's downright sometimes nasty, that it's like, okay. And that's why don't nobody want. So, you know what I'm saying? This thing flows both ways, and we got to look at it. We got to look at it for real. We got to look at it from both aspects and then try to find what's resolution. You know, how do we get past it? How do we take down those walls, these barriers that won't allow us to communicate or effectively communicate, won't allow us to trust, you know, or put ourselves in that position that Paul talks about, you know, taking that risk or seeing you worthy for me to put myself in that place and to take that risk. So, yeah, I think there is a lot to go here. Jay, what you want to add?
So I think the broader piece of that, so your statement about accountability, your statement about filling in the gap, you know, has a little bit to do with generational differences. And what I found is younger men don't understand the price that our generation had to pay. And the reason why that is because it's not as visibly, it's not as easy to see. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. You guys look at Malcolm and Martin as those quintessential frontliners that were out there fighting the good fight, right? They were on the front lines. They put their bodies, their lives, their families on the line. And you see that as the road to accomplishing what you all's platform wants to accomplish. And when you look at our generation, you go, y'all ain't do nothing, right? Y'all, there are no front runners. There are no speakers. There is no national platform. And the reason why it's easy to see it that way is because you didn't understand the price that we had to pay. Our price was different. That generation, our fathers and our grandfathers, had to fight to open up the doors for us, right? And they didn't want us in that fight. They wanted us in school. They wanted us pursuing education. They wanted us growing our finances and our families, right? Which took us in a different space than where they were, right? So we still weren't home, right? But we weren't home for a different reason. We weren't home because we were working. We weren't home because we were studying. We weren't home because we were trying to improve ourselves so we could become better fathers, so we could become better leaders, right? And we're just now getting to that point at mid 40s, mid 50s, where we have acquired the things that our fathers and our grandfathers wanted us to acquire. So we're really just at our launching point, our launching board, where you guys are really looking at us like we're finished, right? And so my answer to you on filling in the gap, my answer to you on the accountability piece, my answer to you from a practical platform is be patient, right? We're just now getting where they wanted us to be, right? We're just now getting to the CEO positions. We're just now getting to the executive management positions. We're just now getting to the leader of department positions. The doors that Malcolm and Martin fought for are just now really being opened, and we are now just getting to the point where we're actually qualified, right? And they're letting us in. So what I'm saying to you is be patient. You know, the next 10 or 15 years, you're going to see this generation take our rightful positions. And now we're going to be able to reach back and open doors. We're going to be able to fill in the gaps because we sit in the positions of leadership. And I'll give you an example and I'll yield the floor. New York Life has been in Richmond, Virginia for 176 years. I'm the first African-American partner in our office in 176 years.
Wow.
When my boss retires and they promote me to managing partner, I'll be one of 116 people that manage offices for this Fortune 100 company in the country. There are 5 other African-American males that have this job, right? We're just now getting into the chairs where we can make the impact that you all are looking for, right? So my answer to you is, why y'all, because we're not there yet. But we're real close to being there.
And I,
Hold on. Pastor K just put up and said that there is an echo. So
it's an echo.
I don't know if the reverb is on. I don't know if it's on one mic, all the mics, or
And you notice John left.
that's what
Because
happens
that's
when
what he
you're the
does.
production.
And he does, and he's good at it.
Because we don't know how to fix that.
Look, that's what happened when you the youngin and the production dude. So
And he moved real fast.
yeah. So y'all forgive us.
That was a sneak peek of every Sunday.
Okay, Jay, you was making a point.
Yeah, so I understand. I totally understand everything that's being said on the stage. And one of the things that you may be hearing one of the things is my generation and like Joel's generation. Joel's generation is seeing all the work that is coming forth. But my generation had to sit and watch our fathers and our grandfathers strung out, drunk, on drugs, not being there, being locked up in jail. That the generation that I'm coming into, we had to see that.
Right.
And we had to endure that. Like, I didn't see my father after the age of 9. He left and went to Florida. And I never seen him again. But
How old is your dad?
my dad's 60-something.
So he's a little older than me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, we had to sit there and endure the crack epidemic of the 90s. That type of atmosphere, especially here in Richmond, where even when I talked to my father about how the environment was, he said you can smell dead bodies on North Avenue just walking past. That type of violence that endured for many years. And even when I was in high school, when I went to Armstrong Franklin, we'd have, every time the bell rang, it would be a fight or a riot. This type of violence that we had to endure to get to where we come from is a struggle in and of itself, because now we're fighting each other. We have to watch the person that we're sitting next to, and then we have to go out in the street and we have to worry about police officers, and then we have to go into the workplace and we are fighting with people. We're fighting for the scraps, basically.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and in our homes, if you think about it, because of the fracture between man and woman in the generation before us, that's trickled down into now my wife or my sister or my girlfriend or however, they view me as the enemy and I've done nothing. And it's they automatically. I've listened to many women on different platforms speak on how all men are dogs or
Dogs,
all
yeah,
men are
yeah.
this, that, and the third. And one of the things that they talk about are not necessarily their own experiences. They're talking about the experiences of older women, and that's something that's passed down to them. And that's when I mean as we as men now, without having someone to teach us through these moments, we're learning by ourselves. And through that loneliness of not trusting my brother or trusting the older man or trusting the woman that's beside me, through all of that, we're enduring that struggle. And as we're alone, the anger grows. And there is, even in the church, where we have moments where we're supposed to be talking about men and specifically two men, there are moments where it's almost like the pander comes on to the other side. It's like, yes, men, but here go the women. And in today's society, we as younger men, and it's not all of us, but a lot of the younger men are seeing this war between the sexes where it's clearly, especially for us black men, it's a very definite attack on our manhood, the little that we even have. So when we talk to the older men and there is an aggression there, I do understand that we have to be patient, but the patience has to be there on both sides.
Yeah, yeah. This kind of, and I don't know why that just started, but this kind of floats back to the conversation we were having a few weeks ago when we was talking about the emasculation of men. And I think that's a trickle down effect. The whole 70s thing when the drug use, because you're seeing it or you're talking about it from the 90s from the point of which you probably could really identify and see it. But it really started in what? The 70s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's a trickle down effect. It was because the honor on African American men stripped, the respect stripped. The attack on families, African American families. They started giving, welfare would give money, literally a check, a sizable check to a woman, children, but couldn't have a man in the house. So it didn't matter if there was a father that wanted to be in the house, but didn't have the earning power to take care of his family. Instead of it being aid that came along that family, it made that family make a choice. If we let you in, they're going to take this check. They're going to take our food stamps. Watch this, if we put you out, then we'll give them this aid and we'll give them. So now watch this. The man starts to see himself that I'm more valuable to my family by being absent than being present. You understand? I benefit my family. I'm a greater help. I'm a greater assistance to my family by not being there versus being there. But that's not easy to swallow. So now it made the addictive behaviors even that much easier to kill that pain. And so what you see that started in the 70s when the African American family really started to fall, the epidemic of teenage pregnancy exploded in the mid 70s in the African American community. If you look at the data and the statistics before then, it was minimum because daddies were in homes. And that wasn't, you know what I'm saying? That wasn't the mindset. That wasn't the training and development. But right about 75, I believe, when I read it, was the year that, the big split happened and the explosion of teenage pregnancy. So everything changed. It's a trickle down. Does our community or need healing? Yes. Yeah, and I'm grateful for this conversation because hopefully we start to recognize that when we are fighting for, you know, educational and economic, equalities, that those things are great when we're fighting the systems that are withholding those things. But even for us still to prosper, there are some inner works that need to be done. And having this kind of conversation and understanding why it may not be any of us, and we can't really include him because he's about 10 years older than you, but, Paul is 56, I'm 58. So, that our generation, not maybe, but needs to repent, you know, apologize, and then reach back to try to bridge those breaches,
That's a good way of looking at it.
because we were the generation. But to think, the real question, from yours is, why did it happen? Not only that it happened, because there were a lot of men that weren't looking for this, but end up turning to that to deal with a whole lot of stuff, because those were some rough years. You couldn't find a good job. A lot of guys end up either on drugs or slinging drugs because they were trying to be providers. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys watched on Epic. It's a show called, what is it called, Harlem or something, and it's Bumpy Johnson, and it's really the story of Bumpy Johnson, who was actually a real drug dealer
Right.
up in New York, but the dude took care of the community. Now it's crazy because he sold drugs in the community, but he also was the guy he was the godfather of Harlem,
Right.
and he was taking care of the community. And it's almost that mentality that you still see today in some young dudes when you talk to them. Why you hustling? To take care of my family. So to think about it, it wasn't, and I'm not giving excuses that it did happen, but my question is, why did it happen? Why? Because it wasn't always the makeup of our home. There was an epic fail, but some of it was systematic. It was an attack from a system to tear us up from the inside out. And,
And this is the result.
and this is a result that is great, and it's something that we need to now face up, deal with, and figure out how to repair so we can grow healthy together.
I was going to say this, what's interesting is, I think you nailed it, Pastor. Some of the things that have happened over the course of the years, one way or another, coming up through the years, has shaken all of us, And so if we took the time to explore, for instance, my background to your background, we discover a lot of things that went wrong, horribly wrong in some cases,
Right.
until along the way we learn how to get it right some kind of way. And in many instances, we didn't have the benefit of positive role models to have that happen. We had to kind of figure it out on our own, But the bottom line is that now that we begin to see, because what it does is it's almost similar to a soldier going to war. I'm going back to my military days now. But it's similar to a soldier going to war. In other words, while he's in the trenches fighting, he can't be concerned with all of these other things that are going on.
Yeah, that's good.
Because he's fighting. But after the war is over, and I think what Joe is saying is that we're finally getting to the point where the war is about to be over, but it's also where we notice the PTSD. That's where we start to notice the ravages of war.
Wow.
And the ravages of war leave us in this state where, although I was fighting a war and this energy used to serve me because I was fighting, but now that I'm back home and I'm trying to relax and I'm trying to reconnect with people who are important to me, I'm still on edge. And so I'm on edge. I can't connect with John. I can't connect with other people because I'm too busy thinking, protect. And so a lot of us have to work on that ability to take a breath and just be vulnerable for a moment and then begin the process of reaching back.
Jay, I know you got something, but Paul, I need some help because you keep talking about being vul- vulnerable. See, team, I got it right. And and my question is, when it's been ingrained in you to be, not to be, how do you in turn? Now watch this. There were no men. Remember, my grandfather died when I was 8 or 9 years old. There was no men. My mom beat that into me. My mom, not a man. My mom beat that into me. Don't cry. Don't be weak. Don't be all emotional. For a lack of better terms, having nothing to do with anyone's sexuality. Don't be a punk.
Right. You know, what's interesting is that, first of all, let me say, I grew up in Detroit, and I'm not boasting. As a matter of fact, I'm probably putting my city down because I didn't truly begin to learn about black history until I came to Virginia the first time, some 20-something years ago. Never had heard of characters like Willie Lynch.
Right.
And what was interesting is in his letter that he wrote, he said, if you execute this properly,
Yeah.
it'll disrupt generations to come. And that's the reason why, because the first generation watched all of these horrific things happen. The next generation began to warn, well, you got to act a certain way, you got to do a certain thing, you can't do this, you can't do that. Otherwise, what happened to the last generation will happen to you. And then, of course, we bring that forward. And who's to say we're wrong? If there was something that was going to save John's life, I want him to know about it. And so I tell John, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. But what it does is it passes that fear, that intrepidation, and that edginess on to the next generation. At one point, there was a study, I haven't even checked into, rather it's moved forward, something called post-traumatic slave syndrome. And what that's all about is that if I beat John, I'm sorry, I'm using this example, but if I beat John
Got him, didn't us?
within an inch of his life multiple times, and then John has kids, they're nervous. They haven't experienced anything. Because what it does is it alters, epigenetics talks about how it alters the DNA to the point where it's passed, not just behaviorally, because it is passed behaviorally. We were whipped,
Yep.
so we whipped.
Yep.
That one of the funniest and serious scenes in Color Purple was when Miss Seeley looked at Harpo and said, beat her, because that's all she knew. That's all she knew. So in many cases, we had those things going on for us because we didn't know any better. You know what I'm saying? And so now that we're starting to come into this whole thing, let me tell you, I weep for my family. I weep for them. I weep because I see how horrible things are and how horrible they can get if they're not diligent. But at the same time, here I sit saying, at some point, you gotta let your guard down so that healing can happen. And so the vulnerability piece is born out of courage.
Wow.
Courage, and I know I'm probably taking up too much.
No, talk.
Courage, I'm gonna veer away from 300, even though that's kind of our theme right now. But courage is not, it's not the absence of fear.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this in church, God forgive me, it means being scared as hell, but committing myself to action
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
I like to use the example that if when my daughter was young, I would go to, with her school, I would chaperone field trips. And if she fell somehow into the lion's den, okay, how that would happen, I don't know. But she fell into the lion's den. The question would become, would I go in and get her? The answer is, yeah, I would. But the second question is, would I be scared? You better believe it, but I'm going in anyway. And so that's where vulnerability begins, is that courage to say, I know this is difficult, but I'm going to let my guard down and see what it can accomplish.
Wow.
I think where we go with the history lesson and the travel, right? Jay mentioned that, you know, he was raised a certain way, but Josh wasn't, right? And so we've talked about this many times that you know, he carries an envy for Josh. That, you know, you got a good daddy.
Right.
Now that same person happens to be him, right?
Lucky son of a so-and-so.
Yeah, you know, man, like, how dare you act like you got a daddy, right? In reality, and the point
That's my dude.
I'm making with that reference is, and we have this conversation all the time. They've got to live longer. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, we don't have old men, right? If you stop and think about it, right? How many 80-year-old men do you have in your circle, right? At best, most of us have one, at best, right? That we can reach out to for counsel and information, right? But there are a whole bunch of big mamas still floating around, right? And so this generation has got to live longer. Right? Because as we do, we can improve our communication, improve our vulnerability, improve our lessons, right? Then as you all get older, right, we're working on this communication gap. And now that your son, right, by the time he gets to be 35, he's not going to have a problem with reaching out for a mentor or a coach
right.
or guidance. You see what I'm saying? Right? And so it's a lot of work to be done. And the fix, in my opinion, to it is living healthy and living long. Right? That to me is the fix. You got time to change.
I definitely agree with living healthy, living long, but we got to do this on purpose. And I think that's probably been one of the epic fails. Is that as we pushed, you know, and as we thought that we were doing a good job of giving you a boost up, it was all about economics. It was all about social justice. And, you know, the things that we highlighted and pushed to the forefront, you know, access to the same education, access to the same economics opportunities, access, you know, to a seat that no African American has held in a company that's been in the city for 170 years plus. You know, those things were the things that we thought were the things that was going to make us make it. You know what I'm saying? That's what we platform. Now we are making it because our sons and daughters, my son owns a home, 4,200, 4,300 square foot.
That's a big
you know,
house.
yeah.
That's a big house.
This dude ain't 30 years old yet. You know what I'm saying? He has no college debt. The Army is paying for his education. He's a G11 in the federal government. Dude is he's on track, you know. And that's what I push. That's what we platform. But I never stop to think about, though that's not his issue, this issue right here of the inner healing, you know, and taking time to even, one, acknowledge that it was needed. Because even when you came to the platform and said it, I don't know how Paul and Gore, who was here that night? Gore? Yeah. I don't know, but for me it was like, huh? Ding, ding, ding. Because this is nothing that we've ever brought up for discussion, you know. It's been, hey, let's make sure this next generation gets this. Let's have access to this. But it was never a thought of, hey, let's make sure this next generation has access to me.
Right.
You know, and what do I owe them, and what do we have to offer them? And again, a lot of it is men our age and the generations before us getting past the stigma of being undervalued because we weren't allowed to be. You know what I'm saying? It's just like we had the conversation about why do some pastors feel the need to hold all the power and authority as lead pastors?
Yeah.
It's because it was the one place that the African American man could go and be honored and be valuable and, you know, have a platform, have a voice, be seen and identified in his community.
Yeah.
You know, I remember growing up when in Portsmouth, and the big thing was the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. And if you worked at the shipyard, bruh, woo-wee.
Yes, sir.
Y'all had, and then
Longshoreman.
the dude, longshoreman, my uncle
Yeah.
was a longshoreman, and the guy that lived next door to him, Mr. Freddie, was a mailman. Do you know how honored and, you know, esteemed Mr. Freddie was because
He was a mailman.
he was the mailman?
Delivered them checks.
And he had a mail truck. No, bruh, it was not a job.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know you just, but it was not a job that we readily got.
Yeah.
So when you got on at the shipyard, you know, when Cavalier Manor, the community I grew up in, was created in the city of Portsmouth to keep us out of a white section.
Wow.
They did not want us to move in, so they created Cavalier Manor. Every street in Cavalier Manor, almost every street is named after a famous African American. I grew up on Basie Crescent. The street was named after Count Basie. And if you went through our neighborhood, that's what you found. But it was to give us a sense, you know, it was really, they was, you know, it was this underhand thing, like, they take this, but don't come cross Cavalier Boulevard into,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and it was crazy. So again, you know, and I'm like Joe, I'll yield the floor, and maybe back to you, John, so you can expound some more on, you know, from your guys' perspective, how do we bridge this breach? Where is the halfway point? You know what I'm saying? How many steps do we take? How many steps is going to be required of you guys to take? Where do we meet at? Where does this begin? Here's the beginning of an acknowledgement that something more needs to happen past tonight. What's next steps? How do we move forward? You know, but I think we all have to recognize that there's been an epic fail, and it's really hurting our whole community. And it's incumbent upon all of us to come back to this table, address it, you know, repent where it needs to be repented, apologize for what needs to be apologized for, accept the apologies, and strive to figure out now, how do we move forward
Where do we go?
that, you know, my gifts, his gifts, your gifts benefits a Joe Jr. back there, or a Josh, or a Zion, or a King, or, you know, a Caleb. How do we get past this so it doesn't perpetuate? And my grandchildren, your children, you know, Paul's grandchildren, his children are not affected the same way. So let me kick it back to you, you know, since you
Started
all this
Yeah, since you started
trouble.
all this.
Yeah, youngin.
Always starting trouble.
Go to your room. Who let you on the big boy stage anymore?
I can't deal. When everything, the way that I see my generation, is like a mule falling into the bottom of a well. The farmer is going to look for his mule, but he can't find him. So it's incumbent of the farmer either finding a way to get the mule out of the hole, or the mule finding its own way out of the hole. One thing or another, something has to happen. So when we see the older community it's more along the lines of we're that mule stuck at the bottom of the hole. We don't know what's going on. We're just trying to figure out any kind of way to get out of that hole and not drown.
Mm.
But the farmers, the older generation, have to do a little bit more on when we need help to not then shun us away in a manner that is not allowing us to either get help from that particular farmer or the community of farmers or the farmer showing us, bringing someone else to us that can actually help. So there are multiple ways um, that need to be done, but ultimately, like Paul was saying, there has to be um, a point where the older generation doesn't look at us with disgust because we don't act like them. Because a lot of times we've heard it even in our generation, and we're starting to do it, where we look at the disgust of the type of music that our kids listen to,
Good example.
and it's like, but we listened to the same exact music, and so did my grandfather, and so did my mom, and so did everybody. It's just a different sound this time around. So it's like we have to be the older we like with my now I'm getting 35 and I'm getting farther in my career, but the more I'm getting into my career, I'm starting to connect with a lot of older men, and they're starting to, hey, do you need help? I got you. I got this person. I got this person. I got this person, and they're starting to bring me on, but I had to go through the trial by fire, and a lot of the people who I was around, they're still stuck in the fire. They don't know how to get out. So we have to. It's not just. It's the gate. There has been one of the words that I know came up was gatekeeping. Like not y'all's generation, but the generation right before me, most of them are gatekeepers. They will get into a certain position and close the door right behind them. And then it takes us because we have lost, we don't have that information. You get us in the streets and now we're kicking in the door because you closed it right in front of our face, knowing that you should have gotten back to get to us. So you get that anger because it's a lot of anger there. But again, the solution to that is that those older generations have to break down and be vulnerable enough to reach back when we're asking for help. Because a lot of times when we're asking for help, it's like, oh, I can't do that right now. It's kind of like when your dad is working all day long and he's stuck on work, but you're asking him to help you with what 4 times 4 is, but he can't do it because he's too busy.
Wow. Here's something. You make a wonderful point. I'm gonna move from the mule, and I'm gonna go back. I'll do a flashback to when I was a lifeguard. Shut up, no jokes. You wouldn't believe I used to do gymnastics too, right? So one of the first things we learned in life saving is that, okay, you have to calm when a person is drowning, they're fighting for their life, okay? And so it doesn't matter that you're there to help them. They're fighting for their life, and if you don't help them to calm down, they'll kill you too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that was one of the first things they taught us is that you have to help them to calm down. Now let me bring it forward a little bit. Probably, and maybe you've seen it on movies, but have you ever seen anybody drowning? They're fighting for their life. They're splashing, and it's wild. It's out of control. Now, I want you to take away the water for a minute. Imagine the water's not there, but the person's still fighting for their life. So imagine John flailing, arms all over the place, acting erratic. And I'm looking at him going, not realizing he's drowning. I'm going, he's crazy. Meanwhile, he's not crazy. He's drowning.
Right. So we misdiagnose for crazy was actually, and I think, Paul, that's a perfect point because I kept hearing John say, "We're asking for help. We're asking for help," and you made another analogy that we're kicking in the door. You're kicking in the door is asking for help. To you, is asking for help. Is to us. Think about it on the other side. If you're kicking in the door, it's an attack. It's a violation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Based on what we've been through.
Right. So I'm going to respond totally different to your kicking in the door than what you expect me to, and it only makes you angrier because you're saying, why are you responding to me this way when I'm asking for help? But I'm looking at it and saying, why are you attacking me? You see what I'm saying? See, sitting here right here tonight, I'm listening to what you're saying, and if I didn't know you, I could sit here and really become offended by what you just said because it could feel like an attack. You know, I turn my back on you, I could be sitting here and literally like, I don't know you, I don't owe you nothing. Why you coming at me this way? And become totally offended or turned off. So it's the effective communications, again, that keeps us from getting to a place of resolution. Because you're screaming at me. You're saying it all in large caps. And because you are, I'm now feeling the need to defend myself from you instead of opening myself.
When really you're asking for help.
And you're asking me for help, but you're saying it in a manner that looks like, yo, this joker coming at me and I need to defend myself. So when I should be greeting you with open arms, I'm greeting you with, this thing of stand off, back up, yo, you in my space because of how it's being presented.
And what's interesting is that you are exactly right. Now add this on top of it. We're acting this way, not necessarily because you are a threat, but because we know what we've been through. And so you look like a threat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Even though you aren't. So if I've been in fight after fight after fight after fight, and then somebody kicks my door in, well, it's another fight. I have to reprogram myself.
Look, Sharonda said is recycled dysfunction.
Right.
Pastor Allen White down in the Tidewater area says we just got to learn how to talk to each other no matter what. So,
and that's
Marvin
one of
Gaye
the
was onto
things.
something.
yeah.
And that's one of the things that I was looking at as I was listening to you speak. And it's kind of like it's like if my house is, all live in an apartment building, and the apartment is on fire, and it's my apartment that's on fire, and it's starting to spread everywhere else except for your apartment, and I need to get to safety to a phone, and you got the phone, and I kick in your door, I'm telling you I need help. It's on fire. You're going to go in flames just like I'm going to go down in flames, but you have what I need in order to save us all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like if I kick the door in and you understand why I'm kicking the door in, then it's less of a misunderstanding.
See, but here's the challenge is the why. And the why is only unveiled in effective communications.
Correct.
Because your actions are effective or proper responses to you, but only to you. I'm on the other side of the door. Now, here's the thing. I may not even know that the fire is happening down at the other end. And true, you might be bringing me information that I need that will save my life. But if you kick my door in, you got to remember my very thought based upon the culture that I grew up in. If you kick my door in, my very thought, it is automatic for me to defend. And because I go straight to the mentality of defending, I never hear you. I never hear. Now, both of us can end up consumed. Why? Simply because we never got to the why. And what I guess I'm saying is, is there a better method other than kicking in the door? It's gotta be, because I don't think kicking in the door is really going to get you the response that you're looking for from a generation who's dealt with their door being kicked in. When you've dealt with police or whatever, kicking in your door, Jay, you got a totally different response to that behavior.
But keep in mind.
Talk in your mic, Paul.
And
We'll
I'm
make sure
going-
we
I'm
understand.
sorry. So keep in mind, I'll go back to the drowning analogy. He's fighting for his life. In other words, when you fight for your life, you act erratic.
Erratical, right.
Okay, because all logic is out the door. I'm trying to save myself. Okay, and that means I do whatever needs to be done in order to preserve myself. And so we're looking at that erratic behavior, and we're both right. I love what the scripture says. He says, blessed are the peacemakers, because they will what?
Inherit the earth.
They will inherit the earth. Now, when he says, I had the pleasure of reading a book a long time ago called The Psychology of Jesus. Yeah, I know, I'm weird. And so he broke down inside of that. He said it's not what it seems. It's not that blessed are the peacemakers as in we're going to just be nice to each other.
Sing
We're
kumbaya.
going to fight our way through these very issues so that peace can happen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think one of the components that fall into that space before the door kicking that y'all's generation doesn't quite understand is respect. And here's what I mean by that. Most of the things that our generation has done, you can't really see. They're not flashy. They're not visible. They're not apparent to the eye. Well, you could be famous sitting at your house on the sofa. You take your cell phone out and you took a picture of you doing absolutely nothing, right? And 1,000 people gave you some likes, right? And made you feel important for doing nothing, right? And now you value yourself at that level when you've actually accomplished nothing, right? And here you are coming in, kicking my door down when I got a laundry list of accomplishments that you could put your finger on, right? And you're discounting all of the things that I've accomplished because I'm not receiving you at the level that you're at. Then you get angry. Now you want to kick my door in.
But there's
right?
a reason for that.
And so
There definitely is a reason
right,
for that.
and so the point I'm trying to make is that there's respect that has to be performed on both sides,
yeah.
right? But you gotta, to Pastor's point, even if the whole building's on fire, right? And I'm wrapped up in the middle of that. Well, what you don't understand is I already took the steps to put the rope out the window because I've been in a fire before, right? So I know how to respond when the fire arrives, right? And you've discounted all the information and the ideas and the planning and the processes and the studying that I put in place to arrive where I am.
And I don't want to cut you off there, but I get what you're saying. But when I hear that, that's you did that by yourself in your space and nobody else knew. And so that's us. So when we come in kicking the door, we don't know nothing about that.
Right.
And we don't care about none
Right.
of that. We're just trying to make sure that we preserve the life of all of us, vice
But
versa.
see,
I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
Bob,
go ahead.
But
Go ahead.
but to us in our eyes, it comes off as two kind of ways. It comes off as arrogant and it comes off as selfish. That's just how we see things when we see someone who has all of these things, and that's why you get a lot of socialism talk and all of this stuff, because we've already seen the generations before us prosper off of many things, and it's not necessarily y'all individually, but it's the representation that is given through us through the history that we're told. And because there is a separation between the generations, huge gaps of actually telling the stories, because a lot of our griots are dead. You know, we don't have griots. Our griots for our generation are the rappers. Our griots are the people who most of us don't even really read. We watch videos. There's a lot of illiteracy. So in saying that, and then on top of that, when you have generations who are not just missing, you have generations who are miseducated about manhood. And then you have this situation where now there's a powder keg that's blowing up in everybody's faces, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know where is this coming from?"
Right.
It's like we've been screaming about this forever. When are you going to even hear what it is that we're already saying? We started off with a whisper, and now we're screaming, and now we're kicking down your door. It wasn't just we just came back and kicked in the door. There was a progression of it that was ignored. And I know that the generation before, the 2 generations before us, they were fighting. But at what point did they ever think about the children who were left? The children of the veterans who died in those wars. Those children who died in those, whose parents died in those wars, are the lost children that God told us to look after, and they were not. And that is a huge sin on the men of the older generation, because the children and the widows were not looked after.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm gonna close out on this.
Go ahead. No,
but
take your time.
That's in this one thing that I learned growing up in Richmond, because I was the drug dealer little brother. They didn't let me around none of that stuff, but I was around a lot of the things that were going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they told me about, hey, if we doing this, we gonna go in such and such house, and we gonna make $130,000 a day, but we gonna get her $10,000, and we gonna put groceries in our house. That's the type of stuff that we saw. So when they talked, we respected it. So but we only respected it because our dads weren't there. They were the men that were there who were providing and who were doing for us. My brother used to give me money, but you going to camp, go get your, he used to try to keep me out of that by giving me that leg up.
Right.
So when it comes to like how I grew up and how a lot of other people grew up, even when you come to the suburban kids, they still have some of the similar stories to us who are in the inner cities. So again, like going back to the point, it's like when we're told by the older generation who shunned those guys who are our heroes, and now those people are starting to be propped up, and now it's toxically propped up because now it's just the imagery of what had passed. It's not even what it had passed. It's just the face of what had passed. You don't even have to live that lifestyle to say you were in that lifestyle.
Right.
Like now it's like, okay, my generation is like, all right, we already seen this already before. What are we going to do next? Now we're getting together because we saw that the infrastructure that was supposed to be present for us is desolate. It's decimated. It's not even there. So now we're learning how to band together and build these infrastructures that would destroy, because once the drug epidemic was over and all the drug dealers got locked up, now what do? Now we got to do it legit. Now you see people trying to sell T-shirts, trying to sell music. They're trying to sell all of these different products, but they're doing it by themselves. They don't have no idea what they're doing. But then when we see the older community who already know how to do that, they've already done that, and then we say, hey, well, how do you do such and such? Nah, you got to get your own. You got to get your own. And that's the attitude that has been perpetuated. So now when we see, all right, I can't ask them for help. I don't have my father. I can't ask my mom because she don't know. She definitely don't know nothing about this. I got to ask Lil Sean down the street. Hey, bro, you did this before? Nah, bro. Now we got to figure it out together. And now we look like we wilding out in the street, but we really not. We just trying to find our way through the wilderness, and we don't have a God in the wilderness to push us in the direction that we need to go. So we're all the lost children.
Can I say this, that you're not the only generation. It's been perpetual in our community.
Right.
And I think That's part of it. First of all, you got to stop isolating yourself like you're the only ones. You're not. You're not. This has been perpetuated in the African. Remember, how old are you?
35.
I'm 58. Never seen my father. I think the last time I was somewhere between the age of 5 and 7. You're not, here's the thing, you're not the only ones. The same story and the same pushback that you got about the how-tos were some of the same stories. I'm not going to point at Jay, but I'm going to point at Paul. It's probably the same stories and the same pushbacks that we got about the how-tos. Am I saying that that makes it right for your generation? No. What I want you first to get past is this anger that you're the only ones. No, you're not. It's a cultural issue that needs to be healed, that all of us got to own. Just like I got to own it to try to help you, you got to own it to try to help the next generation and to be the next leg up. Here's the thing, Jay. None of us can do anything about what happened yesterday. The only thing we can do is recognize where we failed yesterday to try to build a better today and prepare a better tomorrow. So the anger, all anger is not good anger. And some of the anger and the kicking and the, you know what I'm saying, the screaming keeps us from being able to effectively communicate because we don't talk the same way. When you scream, even though Paul says you're drowning and you're fighting for your life, when you scream on me, it's going to get a totally different response from me than when we sit down and we come together and we reason together. I get it. There was an epic fail, but it's the same epic fail that I had to overcome. It's the same epic fail that my grandfather had to overcome. It's the same epic fail that my great-grandmother had to overcome. She watched her parents be sold as slaves. My great-grandmother was born 1 year out of slavery. She saw her parents. She was raised by her aunt because her parents were sold off. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just starting here. It's not brand new. Unfortunately, it's not brand new. It's an epidemic that our culture, our community has been dealing with for years, and we have never stopped to reasonably address it.
And I think that's where and I think that's where it's a little miscommunication because it's not that we feel like it's just us. We know it's not just us because again, I'm the generation that had to watch our fathers strung out on drugs.
Right.
We seen it. The question is, when does it stop, and are y'all going to help us to stop it?
So here, the question is, when does it stop, and are we willing? Well, I can't speak for every African-American male. I can only speak for myself. When I stand up and say we are changing people with the love of God, is the very way of saying we're available. How can we help? How do we get, and remember, that was the tone of this whole conversation. How do we get to a table? What table do we get to? What does it look like? And here's the thing, we have to understand that it requires compromise on both sides because both sides are injured. Both sides got some hurts they still dealing with. Both sides probably feel like they've been wrong, and both sides are right. But the only way we get better is at some point in time, we've got to first be willing to get past that. We got to be first willing to come to a table. Because I get it, you asked a man, and that particular man said he was too busy, but you didn't ask every man. You get what I'm saying? And we can't transfer that particular attitude of the ones that were approached to every man and his availability or his willingness to stop and help.
So
I want to speak to the man who was busy, right? I don't have their story, right? My father and my grandfather were both in my life for most of my life. My father's still alive to this day, right? On the block that I lived on, right? On the block that I lived on in D.C., every home in our part of the District of Columbia, there was a father in every house on the block that I lived on, right? They paid taxes. They voted, right? They made sure that our schools were equipped with whatever they could fight to get, right? They made sure our schools were equipped with all of the resources that they could imagine, right? But not only did they have to take care of our family, right? They had to take care of the community at large, because every neighborhood didn't look necessarily like our neighborhood, right? Every part of DC didn't have what the sections of the city that we lived in, right? So they had this great burden to carry. They ain't had time to care about our feelings. They ain't had time to be there and support us. They had to go to work, because everything that they were trying to put together was trying to be taken from them left and right. They're changing the redistricting the lines. They're changing tax rates. All of these battles that the men who were available, that the men who were in their homes, they had to carry all the weight for all the men who weren't in their homes, right? And so when you come to them, right, looking, they're giving you back, bro, I had to do it by myself. And the secondary response to that is, I'm tired, right? I'm tired of being the neighborhood's daddy. I'm tired of being the neighborhood's granddaddy. I'm tired of answering for every black man that ever hurt any other black woman on the planet, right?
Right.
I'm tired of always having the target on my back. Now, if you really want to listen to me, I'll share with you, but the approach that you're taking offends me, right? And the reason why it offends me is because I've been carrying this burden for all these years, right? You just now old enough to the point where you can actually carry the burden, right? And so to Pastor's point, I think one of the very first areas that we need to address, and I'm going to use the big broad word and then I'm going to narrow it down, as we say it all the time, is communication. Pastor used the word healing, right? But the word that I'm going to choose to use is understanding, right? So if I come from a position of understanding, right, that's a whole different spirit. It's even a different spirit from healing. It's an even different spirit from communicating. I'm coming from a position of understanding, and now we can have, a conversation, because understanding is going to have respect in there. Understanding is going to have those other components that will let me reach out and help.
And to your point, I get what you're saying, but the thing that's being left out is the children that are being left behind, or the children that have been left behind. You're talking to children who've never been taught how to communicate in the first place.
Right.
They've been taught that the man is evil. It don't matter if it's your son who's turning 16, he's a man, he's evil. These children who are out here have never been taught to give you that respect.
Yeah.
So when they're coming to you and you see them as being disrespectful, you kind of telling a red crayon to be a Twinkie.
Can I say one thing? Can I interject one thing? Culture is culture, man. Because what you're asking, your statement, I hear you loud and clear. But what you're asking us to do is to forget the culture in which we were raised in, where honor and respect were key. So while we can all be culturally aware and we can identify with the nuances of a different culture, what we never can do really is forget the impact of the culture in which we were raised. So wait a minute. So no, I wasn't talking, because I see you geared up. So when you say there is a generation that's never been taught respect and honor, and I get that and I understand that. So when they come and they aren't respectful, or it looks like they're not being respectful and it looks dishonorable, you still got to remember that there is a culture in which I was raised, and that when I see one thing, because of the culture, it elicits one response. So honor and respect elicits one response, where the opposite elicits another response. And here's this. When you tell me that that's wrong or you need to get past that, what you're telling me is that you've got a right to your culture and the responses, but I don't. And it's not going to flow that way, Jay. That's why I'm saying and I hear Jay said that we got to get to the place of understanding, which, again, to me, doesn't happen without effective communication. You know what I'm saying? Until we get to a point where we can share freely, like this is taking place, and get up from a table where it might get a little heated, but still get up and embrace and love one another and still be like, but I got your back. You know, it got a little heated in the exchange, and I'm not saying this exchange has, but I'm saying that exchange probably will, because there are going to be so many cultures in a room and so many culture gaps and so many persons who believe that they are right, that it's going to take some strong-willed minded persons to push past all the rhetoric to get to a place of resolution.
And that's one of the things that I hold key in these communications, is because one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is I taught in Richmond Public Schools. I taught music. I taught drum lines in Richmond Public Schools. So these same kids that we're talking about who don't have the understanding of communications, I had to deal with that disrespect. I had to understand where they were coming from, and it leads me to even love the scripture where it says if someone offends you, you turn the other cheek. And how many times? Every single time. And it's literally that agape love that is necessary for us to, even though we're being disrespected, because we disrespect God all the time, he still turns around and he loves us no matter what, until we get back on track to where we need to go.
John, what's the vision of our church?
Oh, you done put me on the spot.
What's the vision? Not the motto. The motto is life is better when we do it together. What's the vision of our church? Is to be what?
Changing people with the love of God.
How?
With the love of God.
So at the end of everything, or really the beginning of everything that we do, or that we're trying to accomplish, it flows from what place?
The love of God.
Love of God.
The love of God. So I'm glad you said that, because that's an excellent place to probably bring it back to. In other words, Joe, you hit on an excellent point. When you say, whatever it is you say, when you say it offends me, as long as emotion is high, logic lowers itself, okay? God made us that way. In other words, from a survival standpoint, if a bear kicked in that door over there, I'm not going to think about how to get through one of these windows. I'm going to get through one of these windows.
You can just go through that side door.
Right. No, that's the logic speaking. See, that's the logic speaking. But when my life is in danger.
I got you.
There ain't no bear here right now.
Right, exactly. And so what I'm getting at, essentially, is that, okay, in sales, I think what they used to say is people don't know how much, they don't care what you know
until they know how much you care. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And so that essentially is going to be what I believe to be the starting point of everything. As long as, I'll use a word, trigger. An anxious brain triggers another anxious brain. You know, if I lean over and call you stupid, it becomes, who you calling stupid? And then I'm calling you stupid. And it just escalates from there, okay? Because that's the way it works.
Well, you're trying to call me stupid on the slide.
Not at all. Not at all.
I think you called you stupid.
Not at all.
I just knocked this off my shoulder. I think.
Right. And that's the culture we come from. I dare you.
I dare you cross this line, bro.
Right. And so that's why I said at the beginning.
In John's culture, is he going to take a picture?
Not mine, that's Joe.
And that's why I say.
Yeah, that's Joel and them taking pictures there.
But that's why I say we have to come from a place where I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. Now, trust is not simply given.
Right.
It happens over time.
Yeah.
Okay. There's another saying. I love quotes. The other saying is, a man convinced against his will is of the same mind still. That means you can make all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
It's not changing my mind. Okay. To change my mind, I gotta know you love me.
I think we need to have a Bridging the Breach picnic cookout. Because
Would probably do it.
Because I don't think it could literally, we started talking about resolution. I don't think it could start with the hard conversation. I think it has to start in something that just allows us in a room where, okay, let's just get to a place of understanding. Let's not tackle the issue. Let's get to a place where I understand, now tell me again why your pants hang off your butt. You know?
Yeah.
It's like there's an app for that. No, there's a reason for that.
You know,
You know.
and help me understand your music, okay? Because when I grew Marvin Gaye, and it's just a place where we don't tackle the issue, but we can start building some relationship. We can start building some trust. We can start building some friendship, and then as friends, maybe once we get to the point of there is an established friendship, some friends can get at a table and start discussing some issues of how to make our community better.
Right.
But I think if we come to the table with emotions, it literally what Paul said is going to be true. Logic is going to be low. And when we get to the table, we really need to be in a place of being logical, where I understand that what you say and how you say it is not an attack. Where you understand what I say and how I say it is not an attack. That there are some cultural differences, even in our communication styles, that we may see honor and respect totally different, but we understand that that's how you show honor and respect. This is how I show honor and respect, so I can accept that. I think it has to be the place where the repentance, the apologies, the healing, the relationship are put to the forefront, so we can peacefully get to the place of being able to discuss the issues. So for us, food and fellowship is that place.
It is.
So I don't know. I do not, and I'm not professing to have all the answers, but I don't think this is the end of it. I think this is the beginning of it.
Yeah.
The next thing is who, what, when, and where. Who? What voices are we bringing? Because there's no way we can bring everybody. But all of us need to be properly represented. So what voices are we bringing in the room? Who are the who's, what, and the where. This is a building. It's our building. If it suffices, cool. If not, there are other pastors that I'm sure that would be open to this same conversation, that may have larger facilities. There are parks. So, the what, when, where to get started. But I don't think we're in a place, just listening to us discuss, and be open. I don't think that getting a whole bunch of Johns and a whole bunch of us and putting us at a table and saying, go at it, boys, is going to give us the outcomes that we're actually looking for.
But what it does do is, moving forward, and the hope is that the conversation continues. When I walk away, I know how you feel.
Yep.
I know where you stand, and I respect it. So despite everything, we're still in a better place because I now know where John's coming from.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not only do I know where John is coming from, but I can see, let me put on my Martin Luther King hat for a minute, but I have a dream to where I can see a resolution can happen. It may not happen today, it may not happen this coming Sunday, but I
Right.
can see that it can come. And I'm excited about it.
Great conversation. Man.
Great conversation, and we want to.
No, Jay. Before, and I know we got to close. But to me, if we don't have a next step, there won't be one. If we don't have a committed next step, it won't be one. You know, for real, it'll get swept under the floor because you'll get busy, I'll get busy, Paul will get busy, he'll still be frustrated.
Right.
And that's just our truth because life is going to continue to happen. So somewhere, if it's us, if it's 3C, somewhere there has to be a commitment to the next step. And I'm not saying the next step has got to be, okay, the next step may simply be, let's come back to the table. Let's create let's get on the whiteboard. Okay, we get Gore back, we get maybe Algernon or Chris, and John, you bring a couple of more young guys. Let's get downstairs on the whiteboard, and let's try to create at least an outline of some of the things that we want to address to how we deal with this. But if we don't do anything here, this hour and a half that we spent,
It's all for nothing.
it's all for nothing. And I can't walk away and feel good about that. So I got to ask for a commitment. You taught me that. For next steps. and I do. No matter what it is, there has to be a commitment to the next step. So before you go into how we get off the TV.
I was going to open the doorway to how that can happen. So one of the things that we do here at 3C specifically is we have our Iron Man's ministry. Our Iron Man's ministry is iron sharpening iron. We meet once a month. Sometimes we do fellowship. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we just, dig into the issues, right? And so we already have June's program on the platform, which I'll talk to you about in a second. But we haven't mapped out the summer's plan and process. Well, here's what we can do tonight. We can allow you to connect with our Iron Man ministry to make sure that you get the day and the time when we carve out the next step.
And
right?
have a voice.
And have a voice, right? In what the next step actually looks like. So we want to give you an opportunity to do that. Here's how you do that. It's real simple. Text the word Iron Man to 804-925-1466. Once again, Iron Man. 804-925-1466 is in the chat. Joe, make sure you put it for me in the chat on YouTube. You're going to get a connect card. It's going to ask you for two things, your name and your email address. If you will connect with us, share with us your name and your email address, we will share with you the next step meeting. We will give you an opportunity to communicate back with us via email. So you can send us topics. You can send us ideas. You can even send us our strategy places about locations. We don't have to do it here. We can do it anywhere. You don't have to be a member or a partner of our church, right? Our Iron Man ministry is open to any man who wants to participate anywhere. So if you'll connect with us, we'll make sure that we get you the information. You'll have an opportunity to give us your ideas and your insight and your strategies. We'll put all of that up together, and we'll put together when we're going to meet, and we'll make sure that you are in the know when that time comes around. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Cool.
All right. So, wrapping up tonight's conversation, before we transition into our announcements, we want to make sure that we give you an opportunity. Maybe you've never had a chance to understand the love that we were talking about here. Maybe you don't know the guy that we were sharing who gives us that spirit of love, right? We talk about that we're changing people with the love of God, and maybe you don't know God in that manner. We want to make sure we give you an opportunity to do that right now, right? And it's real simple. For those of you here who are here with us in the building, you can simply come on up front and we'll receive you. But for those of you who are online with us, what I want to give you an opportunity to do is get on God's side, to get into the kingdom and to have your soul counted with him in salvation. And here's how you do that. Text the word winner. Text the word winner. 804-925-1466. Text the word winner, and one of the members of our ministerial staff will reach out to you and walk you through the steps to become saved and included in God's kingdom. We want to always make sure that we give you an opportunity because this may be your last chance, and we don't want to pass it up. So if you want to be saved, if you want to be counted, if you want to be one of God's kids, if you want to receive his love, text the word winner, 804-925-1466, and we will receive you in the kingdom, and we will walk you through the steps and processes to join us here. What I'm going to ask Pastor to do now is pray for all of those who have received salvation and asked for salvation and asked for God's love. We'll give you some announcements, and we'll wrap up tonight.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you always for your goodness, your mercy, your love, and your kindness. God, we thank you for the many blessings that you've shown upon us this day. And we pray earnestly now, God, for men around this world, God. We pray particularly for the men that have suffered hurt. And we ask, God, for healing in their life, for restoration, renewal, and revival. God, we pray now for each and every person that made confession to receive you as Lord of their life. We thank you for coming into their life, filling their life with your love. God, we pray earnestly that you would connect them with the proper church, 3C, or any church, God, that's teaching your word, that they could be built up, edified, and grow in the kingdom. Again, God, we thank you for all things being well. We glorify and magnify your name. It's in the matchless name of your Son, Jesus Christ, that we pray, believe, and receive all things. In the spirit of agreement, we say together, amen.
Amen. Amen. So we want to make sure that you get an opportunity to connect with us. We want to also make sure that you know all of the wonderful things that are going on. We got a jam-packed weekend. So Friday night is family night. We're going to pop some popcorn. We're going to watch a movie. We're going to spend some time together outside of our homes, but collectively as a family. Then on Saturday at from 1:30 to 5, we're having a yard sale and a pop-up shop right here on campus. You can come on by, pick you up some goodies, and participate and enjoy some fellowship time here on campus and get you some good stuff. And then we want to invite you back Sunday morning. Doors open at 10:15. We are still socially distancing, still wearing our masks, just to make sure that we're safe. We are still taking care of our facility to make sure it's safe and ready for you. But 10:15, the doors open. 10:30, we're going to kick off our service. And this particular Sunday, we are inviting all men, right? So put them in the car and tell them you're taking them to the store, right? And drag them on over here. Tell them we gonna we showing the game. Now we are having some treats for the men after service, so you wouldn't be lying, right? He just got to sit through service before he gets the treat. So we want to invite you to come out Sunday morning, worship with us, and more importantly, fellowship with us, right? Because we believe that life is better when we do it together, and we want to do life better together with you. I'll let you say goodbye. We look forward to seeing you Friday, Saturday, and or Sunday.
Well, I hope you guys heard all those announcements, mark them down. Looking forward to fellowshipping. Thank you, John. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jay. Listen, guys, we love you guys with the love of the Lord. Stay blessed, man. Stay locked in. Stay focused. It ain't over till God says it over. Go win. Go win. God bless you real, real good. Peace.